Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Metzia, page 80a, top of the page, with the Mishnah, the new Mishnah is Sofer Sapara, Allah Harosh, etc. With regard to one who rents a cow and a plow in order to plow on the mountain, go tell it on the mountain, but he plowed in the valley, if the plowshare, the cutting tool on the bottom part of the plow breaks, he is exempt, as it was even more likely to break on mountainous terrain. In a case where he rents the cow and a plow to plow in the valley, but he plowed on the mountain, if the plowshare breaks, he is liable. If he hired the cow to thresh legumes, but it threshed grain, and the cow slipped and broke its leg, he is exempt. If he hired it to thresh grain, but it threshed legumes, he is liable, because legumes are slippery. Gemara, the Talmud says the Mishnah discussed the liability of a renter who diverged from the terms of the rental agreement, but it does not teach the halacha of liability for broken machinery in the case where the renter did follow the agreement. The Gemara asks, in a case where the renter did not diverge from their agreement, who pays? Rav Papa said, the one who holds the goad pays, as it can be assumed that he caused the plow to break by not leading it in a straight path. Rav Sheisha, son of Rav Idi, said, Rav Shisha, son of Rav Idi, said, the one who holds the vessel will plow itself pays. The one who holds the vessel, the plow itself, pays. And the halacha is that the one who holds the vessel pays. And if it was a place where rocks are commonly found, they both pay. As in this case, any small irregularity in the ground where the plow digs a furrow is likely to cause the plow to break. Rabbi Yochanan says, citing the Tosefta in Bava Batra 4:6, in a case of one who sells a cow to another and says to him, you should know that this cow has defects. It is accustomed to goring. It is accustomed to biting. It is a kicker. It lies down habitually. But in reality, it had only one defect, and he inserted it among a list of defects that it did not have. This is a mistaken transaction, as the buyer saw that it did not have the other defects, and therefore did not take seriously any of the defects the seller enumerated, including the one that the cow actually had. But if the seller stated the animal has this defect, in other words, the defect that it in fact has, and other defects without specifying what they were, this is not a mistaken transaction. Tanya Nami Hachi, we learned a brisa. This is also taught in a brisa. Tosefta of Batra 4:3. With regard to one who sells a maidservant to another and says to him, this maidservant is an imbecile. She is epileptic. She is crazy. But in reality, she had only one defect, and he inserted it among the other defects. This is a mistaken transaction. But if the seller stated, the maidservant has only this defect, for example, in other words, the defect that she in fact has, and other defects without specifying what they were, this is not a mistaken transaction. Rav Acha, son of Rava, said to Rashi, If the animal had all these defects, what is the halacha in that case? Can the buyer claim to have thought that the seller was not serious when he mentioned so many problems? Rav Mordechai said to Rav Ashi, we can say this halacha in the name of Rava if the animal had all of these defects. It is not a mistaken transaction, as he was forthright. The seller is not at fault if the buyer did not believe him. Mishnah. New Mishnah. Hasocher es hachamor lahavi al-achitin vehevi al-esoren chayev. With regard to one who rents a donkey in order to bring wheat on it, to transport on his back, and he brought it upon an identical weight of barley, which is lighter than wheat, and the donkey was injured, he is liable. Similarly, if you hired him for transporting grain, and he brought straw of the same weight upon it, he is liable, because the extra volume is as difficult for the animal as the load itself. If he rented a donkey in order to bring it on in a letek, meaning a measurement, a volume of wheat, but he brought a letek of barley, he is exempt, as he brought the same volume of a little higher substance. And one who adds to a load a greater volume than he stipulated is liable. And how much must he add to the load for him to be liable? Simcha says, in the name of Rabbi Meir, a sa'ah on a camel and 3 kav on a donkey. Okay, Gemara. Itmar we learned. Talmud says that it was stated that Amorim disagreed about the precise text of the Mishnah. Abaye said that we learned in the Mishnah difficult as the load. Rava said that as we learned difficult for the load. The Gemara explains Abaye said that we learned difficult as the load with the meaning that the volume is like the weight, and therefore when the volume of the two substances are equal, if one adds 3 kav, he is liable. Rava said that we learned difficult for the load with the meaning that if one weight is like the other weight, then the difference in volume is considered an addition. In other words, one is liable if the weight of the barley is the same as of the wheat, in which case the additional volume is considered to cause damage. Rava holds that if the volume of the two is equal, one is not liable for the additional 3 kav of weight. Tanan, the Gemara attempts to cite a proof for one of these opinions we learned in the Mishnah. If one hired a donkey to bring a letek of wheat, but he brought a letek of barley, he is exempt. And one who adds to a load greater volume than he stipulated is liable. What? Is it not correct that this means that he did not bring exactly a letek of barley, but added 3 kav, which would support the opinion of Abaye? The Gemara refutes this interpretation. No, he added a whole se'ah. The Gemara asked, but the continuation of the Mishnah was taught concerning this case. How much must he add to the load for him to be liable? So it says, in the name of Rameir, a sa'ah on a camel and 3 kav on his donkey. The Gemara explains that this is what the last clause of the Mishnah is saying. In a case where the renter did not diverge from their agreement, for example, they stipulated that he would bring wheat, and he brought wheat, or barley, and he brought barley, how much must he add to the load for him to be liable? Simcha says, in the name of Rabbi Meir, a sa'ah on a camel and 3 kav on a donkey. Tashema, The Gemara further suggests, come and hear a proof from a Braita. If one hired a donkey to bring a letech, in other words, 15 se'ah of wheat, but he brought 16 barley, we'll continue in the next page.